is rising, eyes are turning to you. We turn to you. Hope is stirring, hearts are yearning for you. We long for you. 'Cause when we see you, we find strength to face the day. In your presence, all our fears are washed away, washed away. Hosanna, Hosanna, you are the God who saves us, worthy of all our praises. Hosanna, Hosanna, come have your way among us. We welcome you here, Lord Jesus. Hear the sound of hearts returning to you. We turn to you. In your kingdom, broken lives are made new. You make us new. 'Cause when we see you, we find strength to face the day. In your presence, all our fears are washed away, washed away. Hosanna, Hosanna, you are the God who saves us, worthy of all our praises. Hosanna, Hosanna, come have your way among us. We welcome you here, Lord Jesus. 'Cause when we see you, we find strength to face the day. And in your presence, all our fears are washed away. 'Cause when we see you, we find strength to face the day. And in your presence, all our fears are washed away, washed away. Hosanna, Hosanna,
Luke's account of that first resurrection day. On the first day of the week, very early in the morning, the women took the spices they'd prepared and went to the tomb. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they entered, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. While they were wondering about this, suddenly 2 men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside them. In their fright, the women bowed down with their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, he has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still with you in Galilee. The Son of Man must be delivered over to the hands of sinners, be crucified, and on the 3rd day be raised again." Then they remembered his words. When they came back from the tomb, they told these things to the 11 and to all the others. It was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the others with them who told this to the apostles. But they didn't believe the women, because their words seemed to them like nonsense. Peter, however, got up and ran to the tomb. Bending over, he saw the strips of linen lying by themselves, and he went away, wondering to himself what had happened. This is the word of the Lord.
See what a morning, see what a morning, gloriously bright, with the dawning of hope in Jerusalem. Folded the grave clothes, tomb filled with light, as the angels announce Christ is risen. See God's salvation plan, Lord in love, born in pain, paid in sacrifice, fulfilled in Christ the man, for he lives, Christ is risen from the dead. See Mary weeping, see Mary weep, where is he laid? As in sorrow she turns from the empty tomb. Hears a voice speaking, calling her name. It's the Master, the Lord, raised to life again. The voice that spans the years, speaking life, stirring hope, bringing peace to us, will sound till he appears, for he lives, Christ is risen from the dead. One with the Father, one with the Father, ancient of days, through the Spirit who clothes faith with certainty. Honor and blessing, glory and praise to the King, crowned with power and authority. And we are raised with him. Death is dead, love has won, Christ is conquered. And we shall reign with him, for he lives,
to our Holy Land pilgrimage. We've been following in Jesus' footsteps throughout Holy Week, and today we reach the culmination of our journey in Jerusalem. So Jesus' body was laid out. Everyone went home. The women who were Jesus' closest supporters had a tearful day to wait because it was the Sabbath, and they couldn't do anything with the body to prepare it for burial. As soon as the Sabbath was over, they didn't waste any time in collecting together their spices and ointments and heading over to the new tomb where Jesus' body had been laid. Now, of course, there was a problem, which was how they were going to move aside a stone that was around 3 foot in diameter and about 8 inches thick. And yet they probably thought something would turn up, and something did. Now, I often think it must have been hard for them revisiting the place where Jesus had died. After all, the cross was presumably still standing just 50 yards away from the tomb. Perhaps the ground underneath the cross was still stained with Jesus' blood, just a few yards away from the tomb itself. They must have been fearful and anxious about revisiting the place where such a traumatic event had happened just 2 days before. And yet when they arrived, something seemed different. Something had shifted. For a start, the tomb was open. The stone was conveniently pushed to one side. So they looked into the cave, but there was no sign of the body on the slab where they were expecting it to be. And then everything started happening at once. There were 2 men in bright clothing saying something about them looking in the wrong place. Then they run back home to tell all the others, who then all start to rush to the tomb to see what was going on. And then Mary meets this strange visitor who she thinks is the gardener. Some things felt just a little different on that Sunday morning. Then in a much bigger way, everything was different. The world had changed. This was the day when a man had risen from the dead. Now, of course, this wasn't just resuscitation. Jesus had done that to several people in the past, like his friend Lazarus. In other words, bringing them back from being dead only to live a few more years and then die again. No, this wasn't that. It was resurrection, dying and then passing through the other side, breaking the power of death, so that from now on, the human race had no reason to fear it any longer. On November the 9th, 1989, a man called Harold Jaeger, an East German border guard, opened a gate in the Berlin Wall, so that thousands of people were able to flood in from the old East Berlin into the West. Once the gate was open, there was no stopping it. You can still find traces of the old Berlin Wall in the city of Berlin today, but they're a historical curiosity. The wall no longer holds the terror it once boasted. The old East Germany still held on for a few more years, but its hold over people was broken. It's like what happens at the winter solstice in the Northern Hemisphere every year. As the year heads into the darkness of winter, every day gets shorter and shorter. But on the 21st of December, something imperceptible shifts. The earth tilts and the days suddenly start getting longer as summer is on the horizon. It doesn't immediately feel any different. The following day, 22nd of December, usually feels much like the 21st. Cold and wet and cloudy usually. Yet something really has changed. Likewise, the world can still seem full of darkness and the icy winds of injustice. And yet because of that one weekend in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago, something in the world has dramatically moved. We continue to experience the dark days of winter, but we know that spring and summer are on their way. If ever there was a day that changed the world, it was Easter Sunday. And because of that day, there is always hope. Even when we arrive at that day when it's our turn to die, there is hope. When we despair of our attempts to make this world a fairer and better place to live, there is hope. The darkest day breaks into the brightest morning. Because of Easter Sunday, this world is not ultimately a tragic place, but it's a place where joy and hope dwell because of what happened in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago.